You ever watch someone get humiliated so quietly, so cruelly, it sticks with you for days? Not the loud kind of drama. No, the kind that creeps under your skin because nobody says a word. That's what happened at the DMV that morning, and I was there. It was one of those cold, gray Tuesdays where everything feels slower. The line was out the door, kids crying, folks on their phones, people complaining like usual. But there was one guy, one man, who didn't say a word. He sat in the corner of the room with this battered olive green duffel bag at his feet. Looked maybe 70, maybe older, with a weathered face that had clearly seen more than the rest of us combined. You know that look some old vets have, like they've lived entire wars behind their eyes? That was him. But folks didn't see that. All they saw was a homeless man with a cane, shaking hands, and clothes that had long since given up. And if there's one thing people in line hate more than waiting, it's having their routine disrupted by someone they've already decided isn't worth their time. Now before I go further, let me just say this. If you believe that no veteran should ever be humiliated after serving this country, if you think that dignity isn't something we should reserve for those who look the part, but those who've earned it, then hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what happened next changed the way that whole town looks at strangers and heroes. So here's how it started. The old man gets up, slow, deliberate, with the kind of motion that makes you feel his bones hurt. He approaches the counter where Chad's working. Now Chad's the kind of guy who got his little bit of authority and let it rot him from the inside out. Mid-30s, thinks he's funny, wears that smug grin like it's a badge. Sir, Chad says loud enough for everyone to hear, this line's for appointments only. Unless you're here to decorate the floor, I suggest you sit back down. The room snickers. Someone chuckles behind me. I saw a mother pull her child a little closer like the old man was diseased. But the man didn't flinch. He opened his coat, reached inside, and tried to hand Chad an envelope. His hands shook like leaves in the wind. You gotta be kidding me, Chad said, and that smirk just grew. Are you drunk? Can't even hold a piece of paper right. And that was it. That's what cracked me. Not the volume. Not the insult. But the mockery. The dismissal. Like he wasn't even human. And no one said a damn thing. Not the security guard. Not the supervisor. Just silence, like this was normal. Like mocking an old man was just part of the service. That's when it happened. The old man, flustered, reached into his duffel bag for what I assumed was his ID. And something small and metallic clattered onto the tile floor. Everyone heard it. A soft, distinct clink. The kind of sound that doesn't belong in a DMV. The room froze. The old man didn't even notice it at first. But I saw it. We all did. A round medal, gold, with a blue ribbon tangled around it. The Medal of Honor. I swear to God. The real thing. You don't forget that starburst pattern once you've seen it. A few gasps echoed. Chad leaned forward, squinting, and actually laughed. What is that? Something from a toy store, he sneered. But a woman behind me, younger, maybe mid-20s, was already pulling out her phone. She crouched, picked it up gently like it was made of glass, and read the engraving. Her eyes widened. And suddenly, her entire face changed. She handed it to the old man with both hands, like she was giving back a crown. Is this yours, sir? She asked. He looked surprised she spoke to him at all. Took it without a word. And for the first time, the shaking stopped. His hand held that medal steady, proud, even if only for a moment. The woman whispered something to Chad, and his smugness vanished like smoke. Wait, what's his name? She asked. No way. She typed something into her phone. A second later, she gasped. This man saved 13 Marines in Afghanistan. Got wounded pulling them out of a burning Humvee. He was a national story 15 years ago. The silence that followed? You could have dropped a pin and heard it echo. Chad looked like he'd seen a ghost. He tried to cover it, to ask the man again what he needed. But it was too late. The spell had broken. Everyone in the room suddenly saw the old man differently. Not as a vagrant. Not as a nuisance. But as a hero who'd walked into that DMV not asking for a parade, not asking for glory, just trying to renew an ID. And what did we do? We laughed. We stared. We judged. The woman, bless her, stood by his side. Sir, would you like me to help fill out the form with you? She asked. He nodded, slow and quiet. And as she led him back to the counter, Chad had to sit there and process every second of the way he'd treated this man. Because now everyone was watching him. And me? I just stood there, ashamed. Ashamed that I hadn't spoken up sooner. That I let silence play accomplice to cruelty. But I'll tell you what, that moment stuck with me. And it gets worse before it gets better. Because the next person to walk in that DMV? Well, he didn't come alone. He came wearing stripes, stars, and the kind of authority that doesn't ask for respect, it commands it. And what he did next? You'll want to hear. You ever feel a room change? I mean, really change, like the air gets heavier, like suddenly everyone realizes they're part of something much bigger than they thought? That's what happened the moment that woman, the one who read the name on the medal, gasped. This man saved 13 Marines in Afghanistan. Just like that, the DMV became something else. No longer a place to renew licenses and register cars. No, it became a courtroom, a church, a reckoning. Every whisper, every giggle that had echoed through those linoleum walls a few minutes earlier, vanished. The sound of quiet breathing and distant traffic replaced it. And Chad looked like he'd been punched in the gut and still hadn't figured out which direction the hit came from. The old man, we still didn't know his name, simply held the medal in his palm. Not proudly, not boastfully. Just as a fact, like a scar. And now, people were noticing things they'd missed. The limp that made each of his steps deliberate. The shrapnel burns peeking out from the collar of his shirt. The way he glanced around the room, not nervously, but like a man who'd been trained to watch exits and count threats, long after anyone else would have stopped. It wasn't just a medal. It was proof. Proof that all of us had judged him before we knew the first thing about him. That's when the woman, I later learned her name was Elena, pulled out her phone again. She wasn't just Googling now. She was making a call. Yes, she said, barely above a whisper. I need to speak to Colonel Hastings. Tell him it's about Staff Sergeant Dean Hargrave. She paused. Yes, that Dean Hargrave. The rest of us just stood there, pretending we weren't eavesdropping, but nobody was looking away. Not now. 10 minutes passed. The old man, Staff Sergeant Hargrave, as we now knew, sat back down, quietly filling out his form with Elena helping. Chad didn't say another word. He looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. People stopped scrolling their phones. Kids stopped whining. A kind of collective silence settled, like the entire room was waiting for something we couldn't name. And then the doors opened. He wasn't in uniform, but you didn't need one to know who he was. Square jaw, polished boots, upright posture that made even the DMV fluorescent lighting feel like stage lights. The man walked in with two others behind him, both former Marines, based on the tattoos and the way they moved like a unit. The lead man walked straight to the line, past the security desk, past the rows of chairs, like the place was his. He didn't look angry. He looked focused. He stopped in front of the old man and didn't say a word at first. Just stood there. And then, slowly, he gave the kind of salute I've only ever seen in memorial services and military funerals. A full, straight-backed, hand-over-brow tribute, held longer than protocol, because this wasn't about protocol. This was about honor. And the room? Dead silent. Staff Sergeant Hargrave didn't return the salute immediately. He looked up, surprised. His eyes locked with the man in front of him. A beat passed. Then he slowly stood, cane in one hand, medal in the other, and saluted back. No words were needed. The colonel turned to the row. I'm Colonel Jack Hastings. Retired. And this man, he pointed to Hargrave, is one of the finest damn soldiers I've ever known. Then his gaze fell on Chad, who now looked like he'd shrunk 5 inches. I was told he was mocked, laughed at, denied service. Is that true? Chad stammered. I didn't know who he was. The colonel's voice was like thunder wrapped in silk. You didn't ask. Elena stepped forward then. Sir, I was just trying to help him fill out his renewal paperwork when I saw the medal fall out. That's when I looked him up. The colonel nodded to her, and his face softened. Thank you for seeing him. For seeing past what too many people miss. Then he turned back to Hargrave. Come on, Sergeant. You're not finishing paperwork today. We're getting you taken care of the right way. Now, here's the part that still gives me chills. As they helped Hargrave out, people stood. One by one. Like we'd all just realized we'd been in the presence of someone who carried more weight in his silence than most people ever do with a microphone. The Marine behind the colonel walked back to the desk and leaned toward Chad. You'll be hearing from people, he said. Eye up. Then he dropped a business card on the desk and walked away. And Chad? That smug grin he wore earlier? Gone. Shaking hands. Pale face. You could tell he knew. This was going to haunt him. The video Elena recorded, the metal hitting the floor, the colonel walking in, the silence of that room, it went viral that night. Over 10 million views by the end of the next day. The comment sections filled with veterans, Gold Star families, and civilians alike, all asking the same question. How could we let it get this far? But that wasn't the end. Because what came next? wasn't just online applause. It was justice. Real, visible, unavoidable justice. And in part 3, I'll tell you how a forgotten hero ended up on national television, how an arrogant clerk found himself facing an unexpected investigation, and how one small town finally remembered what honor really looks like. Some stories die out the moment they leave the room. This wasn't one of them. By the next morning, the video Elena had posted hit the front page of just about every major platform: Reddit, Twitter, even national news. The headline? Homeless Medal of Honor recipient mocked at DMV until fellow officers walk in. And just like that, the entire country met Staff Sergeant Dean Hargrave, a man most of us ignored, a name most of us forgot. Not anymore. The footage showed everything: Chad's sneer, the medal clinking to the floor, the colonel's entrance. And let me tell you, America had something to say about it. Comment sections exploded. Donations poured in. A GoFundMe? Bet 6 figures in less than 24 hours. Veterans across the country started speaking up, sharing their own stories of being dismissed, overlooked, forgotten. Dean Hargrave had become more than a man. He was a mirror, a reminder. The fallout at the DMV? Swift. Chad was placed on immediate administrative leave pending review. But the pressure didn't stop there. State officials launched an internal investigation. The DMV director issued a public apology. And you know that Marine who left the business card? Turns out, he was a liaison for a Congressional Veteran Affairs Committee. Yeah, people high up were paying attention now. As for Hargrave, things changed fast. A week later, he appeared on national TV. Cleaned up, dressed sharp, but still quiet, still humble. He didn't speak much. Just thanked the people who remembered him. Said he didn't want attention. Just respect. I served because I love this country, he said. I didn't expect it to love me back. But today, it did. And here's the part that choked me up. Elena, the woman who stood by him, she was there on that stage too. She's now working with a nonprofit to help homeless veterans access services without judgment. And Hargrave? He lives in a furnished apartment now. Rent paid for by strangers who remembered what sacrifice looks like. We all love heroes in uniform. But sometimes, the real test is whether we recognize them out of uniform when they're old, tired, worn down. When they walk into a room and ask for help instead of giving orders. That's when our true character shows. So if this story stuck with you, if it made you think twice about who you ignore, who you dismiss, who you mock, do something about it. Share it. Support a vet. Speak up when others stay silent. Because next time, the hero might not be holding a medal. He might just be holding the door.